Hello, hello, hello. I figured since my babies are all sleeping, why not record a podcast in my pajamas with my messy bun? Yeah. So we are going to talk about, let me feel into it. Let's talk about the 5 things that no one tells you about free birth. Okay. So if you are either looking to experience a free birth for your next pregnancy and next birth, or you are already on your way to having a free birth because you're already pregnant, congratulations. um, there are 5 things that I absolutely believe that every woman should know before they totally drop into a free birth. And for those of you who do not know what a free birth is a birth where there are no medical quote unquote professionals. I say that term very loosely. And with if you're watching the video, you'll see my quote, my air quotations. A medical professional, um, OB/GYN, midwife, birth keeper, doula, traditional birth attendant, traditional birth companion. Um, None of these people are present at a free birth. It is literally you, maybe your husband, um, maybe a friend. Anyways, there's no medical professionals involved in a free birth. So, if you are planning on having a free birth or you are feeling called to have a free birth, which was my experience with my second son, Damien, I felt so called to have a free birth, and I was within the system for the first 20 weeks of my pregnancy because I had this idea that midwives were more holistic, more naturally minded, more naturally approached when it comes to birth because I've already had a taste of the hospital OB/GYN life and it was not going back there. No. Hot. No, I was not going there. Not again. So I wanted midwives. I'm like, yeah, let's do midwives. I see everywhere that they're the more like, naturally minded, holistic, birth practitioners. Like, let's do this. Holy moly, was I wrong? I was so wrong. That's another story for another day. If you want to hear it, I shall share about it, but it is another story for another day. Anywho, 20 weeks into my pregnancy, I was so sick and tired of the bullshit that I was being put through and experiencing with the medical midwives here in Ontario, Canada. I was so sick of it. And I heard somewhere the word free birth. And I'm like, oh, what is that? That sounds really interesting. Like, what is that? I need to know what free birth is. I need to do this. So I went on, a whim of my intuition. It is very difficult to explain an intuitive, like knowing to people that are not yourself. Because it's sometimes, actually, for most of the time, it's not very logical. It's just like a feeling, and you're like, I need to do this. I need to do this. I have to do this. This is what is, something's telling me to do this. So I told my husband I was going to fire the midwives and I was going to free birth. This scared the shit out of him. He thought I was losing my mind, that I was crazy, which I completely understand. I love him. He was there the whole time. Super amazing. But I heard the word free birth and I was like, I need to do this. This is the path that is being called forward of me. And this is the experience that I obviously want to go through. And my son that I am carrying and going to birth, he wants this experience as well. Little did I know how much it went into preparing and wanting a free birth. So it's easy to say, yeah, I want to do a free birth. This is how I'm going to birth my next baby. But it's a different energy when you commit to it. Yeah, the idea can sound fun. Yeah, this is cool. Like, this is exciting. Maybe, in your mind, you're like, oh, this is a trend. I want to try free birth. Let me get a taste of this. Free birth, let me say, is not for everybody. It is not for everybody. And here's why. And this is the number one thing any mother should know before having a free birth. The first thing, and it is this: you are 100% responsible for the entire experience. You cannot push the responsibility off onto your husband, to another birth worker, somebody in your birth team. It is all on you. Whether the birth goes absolutely delicious, amazing, beautiful, exactly how you desired, or it doesn't, and it ends up, in a hospital, or it ends up with something going wrong with baby or yourself. You are 100% responsible. So this is why, specifically the first one, number one thing to know if you're going to have a free birth. This is one of the reasons why most women cannot do it, because it is very difficult to take 100% responsibility for your experience, whether it goes good or not what you wanted. 100% responsible. I want you to just sit with that for a second. Like, 100% responsible for every aspect, every element of the experience. Okay? And this is a really important commitment in conscious leadership, is taking 100% responsibility. If you never listened to the first episode, I highly recommend you listening to it, because it is the foundation of this podcast. And I share the 15 commitments of conscious leadership, which is, yeah, not only the foundation of the podcast, but it is, it puts you in charge, puts you in power, puts you in the front seat. 100% responsibility. So 100% responsibility for your entire experience of your birth, pregnancy, birth, all of it, all of it. The second, actually, let's go back and like play a little bit with the first one. So one of the other what's it called? The subtopics of this one of taking responsibility is that no one's coming to save you. No one is coming to save you from your experience. There is no doctors to save you. There is no midwives to save you in the actual moment of giving birth. It is you who is saving yourself, which can feel super scary and uncomfortable. But on the deeper levels, there's this huge expansion in that experience, a huge expansion of saying, I can save myself. I don't need to rely or depend on anybody else except for me. And I can do this because I believe in myself, and I'm going to save myself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to freaking do this. um, yeah. And this element and aspect of no one's coming to save you is something that is like a belief, or I guess a desire on some level within the collective consciousness, that we want to be saved. We're expecting the savior to come and save us. I'm going to go on a little bit of tangent, but it's well needed. There is this belief within this collective consciousness, especially within the feminine, even within the masculine element of it, but especially within the feminine, like needing somebody to come save you, that white knight, that knight in shining armor is going to come and save you. yeah, we have this belief, like women have this belief that someone's going to come save them, which is why they want to give 100% responsibility of their power to someone else. So if something goes wrong, they can say, well, it's the doctor's fault, it's the midwife's fault, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. But at the end of the day, you chose that experience. You chose that experience of giving your power away and letting somebody else make that decision because it's easier to blame somebody else than, feel uncomfortable and feel that like, oh, that was my fault. Like, have you ever sat there and like taken responsibility for something that um might have like hurt somebody else or um yeah, affected someone else? Like, have you sat with that and like you can kind of feel like that little like, oh, like that cringe, like, oh, I did that, like, oh, yeah. Then there's this other aspect of wanting to be saved when it comes to this like religious belief of like Jesus or God's coming down to save you from, this awful world that we live in. Like there's also that belief too. So a lot of people are like, yeah, the doctors are going to save me, the midwives are going to save me, the system's going to save me. I'm good. I'm good. So there's so many layers and levels to this like desire of needing to be saved. And I want to like kind of like circle back to the aspect of like someone else is coming to save me, like something outside of me is coming to save me. There's this programming, like the princess programming. Think of like the princess programming of like um Cinderella. Cinderella, she's like cleaning the floors at her stepmother's house and her stepsister's house, and she's waiting for this prince to come and save her from her wicked stepmother. There's this princess programming in a lot of women's minds of this like savior complex. Someone's coming to save me. Whew, that was a big one. I would love to go more in depth with that whole entire conversation because there's so much there and it can be so triggering. But it's so important to have these conversations because if we really want to be 100% in our power, sovereign, like we need to let ourselves be triggered. We need to let ourselves be triggered so we can have a better insight to ourselves of what's going on within, what's being held in our shadow. Okay, let's bring it back to whole free birth stuff. The second thing that no one tells you about free birth is your relationship with your husband, given he's in the birth space with you while you're birthing your baby. Your relationship with your husband tenfold, tenfold, especially if they are the only one in the room with you when you're birthing your baby. And it brings me so much joy to talk about this one because after my third birth, and it was just my husband and I, like literally nobody else, just him and I felt such a huge shift in our relationship, like in him witnessing the birth and being the one to receive the baby as I birthed him and, being my support. It like expanded our relationship and like created a depth to it because he just witnessed something so profound, so magical, so beautiful. And there was nobody else in the room to um shift his attention, distract him. Um yeah, he was the only presence, the only energy within that space. He got to play that protector role. And I find that that's really missing for a lot of men, especially when their wives or their partners are giving birth in a hospital because there's so many fucking people within the hospital. And in that room when a woman's giving birth, especially like, I can only speak from my experience. Um, there's a lot of people. And he was always like, to the side, just to the side on the other side of the room or to the corner. Um, because he didn't want to get in the way. But when it was just him and I, it was just him and I, which was very beautiful. And since that experience, I feel like our relationship just got more juicier. It got more sensual. I can open up to him a lot more because he witnessed me give birth. I mean, he's witnessed me birth our two other children, our two other boys, but it was just him and I. And our sex life is juicier. Our like romance and our intimacy is juicier. So this is something that nobody tells you about because I don't know. It's just not really talked about. So that's my number two is your relationship with your husband can get super sexy. Okay, let me get to number three. So the third thing that no one tells you about free birth is how much work goes into it. And I touched a little bit on this on the first about taking responsibility. There is a lot of work that goes into preparing for free birth. Work as in like understanding physiological birth, but that's only just skimming the surface. Physiological birth. If you have previously birthed, and especially if you have previously birthed within the system, um, there's a lot of unraveling that needs to happen. A lot of unraveling that needs to happen, um, especially if there's birth trauma. There's a lot of unraveling and peeling back the layers of yourself. So much work goes into preparing for free birth because so much shadows come up, so many stories come up, so much fear comes up, so much uncertainty can come up. And that's when it's so important to have certain tools like somatic practices and breath work and even like shamanic journeying. Try and say that. Um, so many practices um, to have in your tool belt to help you move through these things, to move through any fear that you may be having, um, any birth trauma that you've experienced in your previous birth, any disconnection from your body, any, what else? Yeah, disconnection from your body and lack of faith in birthing, which brings me to number four. This is, blah, blah, blah. Which brings me to number four. So number four is, oh my God, I don't know. No, I don't know. Number four. Number four, number four, number four. Yeah, no one talks enough about the work that goes into preparing for a free birth or birthing outside of the system. And we talked a little bit about this in my episode with Tanya and all of the healing that she needed to do after having two births within the system. She said nobody talks about this stuff. Nobody talks about the work that goes into preparing to birth outside of the system or to free birth. Nobody talks about any of that. And I love how she said it. She said something along the lines of like everyone posts their beautiful birth videos with the beautiful music, but nobody ever talks about how much layers that you need to peel back, how many layers that you need to peel back to get to the truth. And which brings me to the fourth one. No one talks about this when it comes to free birth is fears that come up, how much fears begin to surface, how many fears begin to surface surrounding your free birth. The mind comes in, the stories come in, the projections that come from outside of us, in the form of like our friends, our family telling us these like traumatic birth stories. Like nobody talks about the fear that can come up in the uncertainty of, am I doing the right thing? Am I am I really going to be able to do this? Can I do this? Like the stories start to come up. And it's beautiful because they're right at the surface. And when they're right at the surface, it means that they want to be released. They want to be healed. They want to be seen. They want to be loved. They want to be integrated within our body. It all happens beautifully at the perfect time for the perfect reason. It's all to prepare us for our free birth, or for our birth in general. And the final, fifth thing that nobody really talks about with free birth is the primal sounds that you make when you are birthing your baby, when you are birthing the baby down through your body and out. Nobody really shares, including myself. I'm gonna put it out there. This is 100% me too, because I played some pretty music for my birth video, because if you heard the raw, real thing, like I was screaming. I shouldn't say screaming, but I was like breathing and moaning and groaning and breathing my baby out and tapping into like this primal sounds of my womb to birth my son out. Like I really went deep. And no one talks about that. Nobody shares about it. Um, we always have these pretty sounds, pretty songs to cover the primal noises of birth. And I think this is so important to um, share and to talk about, as these primal noises that come from our body, and these noises that when we really tune into our sound and into our frequency and into our body, the sounds and the noises just come out naturally, because it is what our body needs to do and wants to do to get our baby out, and how to move through the pain. And it's also so interesting, because I could see, I'm going to go on a tangent again. I could see the mind. I could see the mind when I was dropping into the pain of the birth and thinking, oh my God, this hurts so much. Like, I can't do this. This hurts so much. This hurts so much. And then I would catch myself thinking about the pain, and I would come back to my breath, because that is like the biggest element to birthing your baby, is your breath. Connecting to your breath, your awareness, the present moment, instead of being connected to the mind. Because once you connect to the mind, you're off track. It sabotages you. So your breath is your key. I'm going to go on a tangent there, but we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to this primal sounds of birth. So I wish that more women would just share the videos of them and their primal sounds, including myself. I'm very nervous to share that, because it's so raw and it's so real, and it's like such a vulnerable, open space. Even though I showed my birth video and my vagina and, my ass and all that stuff, but it's the sound, and I don't know why. I'm interested to explore that for myself. But anyways, those are your five, like the top five things that no one tells you about free birth. Top five things no one tells you about free birth. I would love to know in the comments, If you have experienced a free birth, or if you're looking to free birth, or you are curious more about free birthing, or if you have free birthed your baby, what are some things that you wish someone told you, or something that you learned and would love to share to other mothers who want to free birth or are looking to free birth or in their path of, free birthing their baby? That was good. I like that. That was fun. That was so much fun. I can totally like freestyle this. I'm saying freestyle like I'm rapping, but anyways, I'm going to bed, possibly. Might do some yoga or some qigong or some breathing before I go to bed. Breath work. I don't know. Anyways, thank you. Make sure you share this episode to somebody who is thinking of free birthing their baby. Share this to with your friends. Share this on your pages, and make sure you subscribe and catch it in the next episode. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, I just shared a couple weeks ago Alchemizing Your Birth Story practice, and it is a hour-and-a-half class of moving through any birth trauma that you have experienced within the system. And we do this with breathing, somatic dance, movement. If you want to get access to this, you are welcome to hang out and join in the class. You can find the recording of it on my YouTube channel or I think it's like the third episode of this podcast. So, see ya.